Our next speaker is Jyothi Gupta. I don't know if she is already online. I just saw her coming in, I guess. Yes, there you are. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Great to have you with us again. Really nice. Always nice to listen to you. Where are you located right now?
Now I'm in South India. I'm in
South
the
India.
Asian country in India.
Nice, very nice. How are you?
I'm doing good. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be part of this smart buildings again. And my topic would be more on sustainability, which we would be focusing on targeting the three ECG: environment, social, and governance, which is part of the dimensions of sustainability.
Yes,
So
for sure. Yeah,
I
and
hope
ESG
you
is like
enjoy
the.
my presentation.
Yes, can you share your slides already?
Yes, can I go ahead,
Yeah,
please?
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and of course, ESG is like the main topic that everybody is talking about in real estate right now. So yeah, it would be great to get to know how you're looking into this. I see your presentation, the dimension of a sustainable city.
Right.
Well, I would like to give you the floor, and when you're ready, I will be coming back and ask you some questions.
Thank you. So, hi all. Thank you so much, Global PropTech, to give me this platform to discuss on the dimensions of sustainability. Those sustainabilities we always discuss. We always talk about smart cities. It talks about technologies. We talk about last mile connectivity. But it's important for us all to understand what actually is sustainability. So, I will be focusing on the three main dimensions of sustainability, whether it's environment, which is a main focus to be discussed. Then comes the social environment, which will be talking about the total emphasis on how is the city built. The economy is definitely a very important part, because unless there is a transaction amount, unless there is a financial support in the total city development, infrastructure development, whether it's regarding the environment, whether it's regarding to social gathering, whether it's regarding to technology upgrade, we need the support, and that is how the economy plays a major role. So when we talk about the key main elements, I would like you all to focus on the major research question that people really talk about. To what extent and at what form are we actually talking about sustainability? Are we the researchers, the city authorities, the decision makers, and various other many people who are talking about sustainability cities, are they really focused on that? These three dimensions that I had mentioned, whether it talks about the environment, let's start about the environment. Now, when I talk about the environment, the first priority coming from an Indian country, I would talk on the air quality. Frankly speaking, the air quality of India has been changed day by day because of lot of consequences, lot of things around us. Now, whether we talk about the water and sanitation, the noise pollution, the environmental quality that you all see, the biodiversity, I think biodiversity is a very important part to be discussed, because biodiversity, I would say, is a key criteria for all of us to think over. We need to now ponder over each and everything, whether are we actually saving our earth? Are we actually saving our Mother India? In what way are we actually conserving the existing blessed environment that we are in, and how are we seeing the future? So with that, I would like to take the next slide on how actually we are taking ahead the energy. So these is environment and energy. I would say these are the main criteria for the sustainable cities. Now, whether we talk about how are we actually getting protected with it, what is the future quality, and what is the responsibility of the natural resources. Now, when I talk about the responsibility, I talk about each and every one that is involved with environment. Now, the second dimension of sustainability is social. Social is where we all ensure the welfare of a society. Now, when I talk about the welfare of society, we talk about education, we talk about health, we talk about culture, safety, security, housing inclusion, social. So, in overall, we talk about technology. Now, recently, I don't know if you're all aware, I just got an update in my Apple mobile that there is an earthquake, there's a disaster that has happened 24 hours prior. and there are some casualties, there is something that is we all should be really worried out. Actually, did we really plan for this kind of disaster? Are we ready to address it? Are the citizens in that particular country who is facing the disaster, are there is any supporting factors that's around that country? Are they really actually able to help? So these are all the factors, the culture, the interaction, the social housing facility that we all need to take care. Then comes the economy. As I said, what happens? What happens without money? What happens without having the balance between environment and social? And there is no economy in place. So economy is where you get the general income. What about the job opportunities? How is the employment placed? Because we all hear about the mass recession that's happening, and we also see that the US has completely have a turnover, and there is a lot of layoff happening, whether it's companies like Apple, Facebook, Google, you just name it, and they're listing out, they are listing out the layoffs. But are we really prepared? How is the economy planned for that? How is the citizens going to live? What are the dependencies around them? So the economy needs to be really worked out. It's not that it's not that a moment that we all are balanced and a moment that we all are laid off. That is not the right economy in any city, any country, any all over the world. I would say this needs to be a priority. Now, when I talk about the economy, I would like to focus on the ICT infrastructure, the innovation that we all are aware about, whether it's all about the innovation, whether it talks about employment, it talks about e-commerce industry, whether it talks about the physical infrastructure. I think physical infrastructure is a point that we all need to be worrying and be careful about, because the infrastructure, whether it's water supply, electricity, health, environment, transportation, road infrastructure, urban buildings, smart buildings, green buildings, urban planning, space planning, and the public sectors that we all talk about. So infrastructure is not complete without all this. And indeed, I would like you all to be aware about, there is a spending of about $189 billion of global smart cities, and there is what we have planned in 2023. So this spending has been highlighted by the United States. Now this grant that we all have got for smart cities, it's planned for next 5 years, and for the next 5 years, are we really looking for the $500 million to be being used in the right way? And where is the infrastructure going? That is a question to be asked, because if you see my earlier slides, we focused on the economy and the infrastructure was the main criteria. And we talk about the infrastructure bill, it is one of $1.2 trillion. And the infrastructure upgrade, whether it's roads, the bridges, the electric vehicle charging. It's easy that we all have electric vehicles, but are we having the charging station in place? The public transit upgrade. So these are the few things that we all need to make a city sustainable. So to predefine a sustainable city, we all usually talk about smart cities. I think from 2016 is what I've been giving a lot of presentation on smart cities. There's a lot of research gone, there's a lot of publication that's been published on smart cities, but actually what is happening these days, it's not about smart cities. Now it's talking about sustainable cities. It's talking about the dimensions of sustainability. It talks about the planning, the city management. Now, whether we are having the eco-friendly kind of environment, or whether we are having a city infrastructure that talks and walks on the bikes and lanes, and are we really having a green street? So the question is the green streets really there? Are we having pedestrian-friendly green street? Are we having trees which is low planting? How are we actually activating it? How is the tree planting taking place? Are we having a set of city streets, parks, the private properties that's been taken care? What is the water sensitive and the urban design considered? What is the rain gardens, the pavements, the wetlands? Then how the urban water cycle being addressed? What are the urban food that we all need to be really worried about? Because end of the day, what matters is the food we eat, the place we stay, and what we earn, our family, our friends with whom we are around. So these are all the key requirements that we all need to be aware about, and how are we actually addressing? And finally, the living architecture. Now, when I talk about the architecture, I talk about the green roofing, vertical gardenia. It's talking about the roof terraces, how the walls, green walls are existing. So we are having everywhere green so that we can have a sustainable city. So this is just an example of how the data has been generated, whether you are cycling across, or whether there is a transportation system, or whether you have the accessibility to the metros, the tubes, and how is it being aggregated. So what is the main criteria? Are we actually having a low carbon industrialization? What is the climatic action that we are all aware about? Now, when are we segregating all this data, whether it's the cycling data, the transportation, the vehicular transportation, or whether it's a movement of the people who need help, whether it's transportation with the vehicles, whether it's two-wheeler, or whether it's a signal that we all need to be really worried about. So the best way, I think this is a very good saying, and I added to the slide so that I would like to share with all of the people. The best way is not to move forward. Is the best way is to follow the ideas that is being highlighted. This is by Jake Spreebet, and we all need to follow this. Is like we need to move forward, and how are we planning to move forward? So a sustainable city serves in the best interest, like whether the platform of low carbon industrialization, whether we are having cities which are more livable. What is the economy that we are all actually addressing? What is the economic powerhouse? How are we finalizing the low end example? So I thought with this, let me share you an example. If you all see this slide, I'll just take you around. I am from Bangalore, South India. So if you see the annual population growth here, it's about 3.5%, and the water has been shrunk. And trust me, with the water shrunk from 10 meter to 90 meter, and the 20 years, you can see where we are going to lead. Now, whether it's India, Bengaluru, or whether it's Beijing in China, China also have seen 3.9% of growth, and there is only water available, which is only 3%. Now, when you talk about Yemen, or whether you talk about Kenya, or whether you talk about Argentina, the Brazil, where are we actually going? The Turkey, where have we seen the sudden jump? Where is the annual population growth? The Mexico, if you see, there is 1.5% of growth, that the groundwater extraction is 3 times greater. So this, I think this gives you an overall picture about our world, and with this you get an idea about how geospatially, how actually the weight, the data has been gathered across, and what is the major differences that you all have been seeing. This is definitely important for all of us to understand, because we need to see, with the growth of the country, how are we actually saving the groundwater? And with this groundwater saving, how are we actually addressing the problems that we are going to face for this? So with my next slide, I would like to say that what is the next challenge, whether it's technical or not technical, and when it's not technical, then what is the thing that we are observing? So there is saying that 2/3 of urban population will move to cities. That's a good news, because we are all moving into smart cities, we are moving into sustainable cities. But what is the factors that we are going to see? 80% in Africa and Asia, they will be seeing an urban growth, whereas in other countries, that is the Western countries, they will be seeing the green growth, because they have already seen the growth, but now they are observing a green rating. They are seeing how the global population lives in the city, and in what way can we sustainabilize that place, in what way the significance of urban growth is being seen. If you see this plot, and if you see the years from 1950 to 2000, or about 2020, definitely the urban area, with the help of the population on the y-axis, you have seen it's going vertical, whereas the x-axis is like completely down for the rural area. So in one way, it's a good news that because of the rapid increase in the proportion of people living in towns and cities, but what is the rate of urbanization in developing countries? So whether I talk about urbanization with regard to the developing countries in the LEDC, whether I talk about the developing countries is MEDC, whether it is about the developing or the medium, the low end, and how are they migrating from the rural area to the urban area. United Nations have found out more research on the population and the urban agglomeration, and they have come up with this, geospatial world map, and wherein you can see 2/3 of the population in 2050. And you can see how the growth has been going to be shared. What is the population count, whether it's 80% to 20%, what is the slope that we have been observed. Now, whether you talk about the Chinese cities or whether you talk about the Indian cities from Kolkata to Mumbai, Bangladesh, Pakistan, then comes your UK, London, the European cities, whether it's Paris, and then we go to the Russian, the Moscow, the African, whether it's Lagos, the Cairo, and then comes the American, the New York, the LA, Los Angeles, then coming down to Mexico, and finally you come on the South American regions, say Polia. So if you see the bar chart that's shown below, you can see how African, Asian, European, or Latin American has been growing. And that is what you see when they come to 2050. In what way are we actually growing? And if you see the ocean, that's also been a very important part for all of us to take care. So I thought that it's important for us to understand an overall picture, because unless you understand an overall picture, it will be very difficult for us to understand where actually a sustainability is happening. How are we actually addressing the sustainability, and how are we actually focusing upon that? Okay. So next is the thematic streams that we talk about, and the thematic stream is definitely when we talk about the industrial energy efficiency, it talks about the green water supply, it talks about the disaster risk reduction, or whether it is the risk reduction with regard to the energy, it talks about the air quality, it talks about also the parks and clusters in industry. Now let's go to the second thematic stream. It's a climate smart cities. Now when I talk about the climate smart cities, what kind of energy management are we trying to address? In what way is the efficient and the low carbon waterworks is being addressed? And what is the transportation, the smart buildings, and the city services has been taken care? Most importantly, the smart grids. Smart grids is always a welcome note, and we need to understand how the energy is being saved. Then comes the smart waste refineries. Then comes the value chain development for a sustainable city. For a sustainable city, we need to understand what are the materials that we are using, because building materials is definitely a key criteria for all of us to understand and make it more sample oriented or more sustainable services that we can address, whether it's an energy vehicle, whether it's a clean fuel, or whether it's more on the urban agriculture that we have observed. Then we go ahead with the development of planning, whether it's green technology, it talks about the innovation on city scales, whether it talks about the urban mobility. Now you all know the urban mobility, whether it's transportation, it talks about resource efficiency, whether it talks about the innovation of that we are learning. It's very important for all of us to understand the green value chains. How are we actually supporting the small to medium and the large scale industry? Now, the next thing is the climate resilience in the urban planning and management. In what way are we actually understanding the climatic risk? In what way are we understanding the urban planning and management? And what is the capacity building for the evidence based on the urban planning action? In this institutional framework, we all need to also understand the approaches that we come up with the planning and development, and what is harmonizing the various sectoral policies. The next part is the urban inclusiveness, whether it's integrated, in what way are we approached, what is the urban planning and management, what is the gender equality. Now, I would like to pause here for a minute, and I would like to focus here how actually the gender is being promoted. What is the youth thinking about it? How are we actually practicing sustainable city? because it is the youth who needs to understand and address the sustainability, unless because they are the one who is going to help us, they are the one who is going to enrich and follow in the right direction. Then what is the partnership that we see between the actors and the city networks? How is the finance between the private sectors? What is the national government? What is the funding sources? How is the knowledge management being addressed? Whether it's research institutes, whether it's civil societies, whether it's city governance, and finally, what is the community engagement? What is the awareness that is being considered throughout the things? Now, let me go through this small pie chart wherein you understand the urban management system. There were also others available, but I focus only on the management system wherein it talks about the framework that has been highlighted. What is the sectorial approaches? How are we monitoring the impact? And finally, the building capacity. Because end of the day, what are we looking at? The urban development, the business model, the geospatial tools and assessments, and finally, improving the urban institutional framework overall structure. The next slide would be talking about how are we actually talking on the sustainable transport. Are we talking about electric vehicles? Are we talking about EV industrial parks? We are talking about energy programs. We are talking about business technology. We're talking about rural transportation. So when I talk about the rural transportation, we need to be very clear about the rural transportation with aspects to how are we trying to address the technologies, how we are trying to address the cluster development, how are we going ahead with the greenhouse, and finally the fuel efficiency. So coming closer to my ending, I would like to focus on the solutions that we are all coming to. Sustainable cities needs to aim for the reverse negative impact on urbanization, whether it's consuming fewer resources, reducing the greenhouse emission, fighting the air climate change, and then creating a sense of space. Cities occupy just 3% of Earth land, and we are yet to get 60 to 80% of energy. How are the 90% of urban inhabitants are breathing the unsafe air? That's a question to be asked. What is the climate action that could be delivered? $26 trillion is the economic benefit in 2030. And what are the three ways? I think three ways you have already discussed about social, economic, and environment. What are the main features of sustainability? As a summary of my presentation would be transportation, having affordable transportation, having the electric vehicle stations, charging stations, the walkable and bike ride neighborhood. Then we talk about the energy management, where there is green infrastructure. We talk about the advantages, and we talk about the solar energy that we all need to be taken care. The finally comes about is the public amenities, whether it's accessibility. It talks about green municipality. Let's talk about public green spaces, because end of the day, we need to think about the public. We need to start, putting saplings, and we need to build more of trees and shrubs around us. So what is US CTS planning for? 6% of total American population in New York are thinking about 1% of industrial power to be consuming. San Francisco has come up with recycling and composite mandate, because each state has a different rule. I think coming from US, they have their each state. Even as an architect, we all have an each state to be a designer. So concluding my slide, I would come up with this. Everyone knows that it is impossible until a fool who didn't know came along and did it. So with this, I would like to conclude my slides. And if you're there, thank you so much. I'm open for questions. Hello.
Yes, hello. Yes, it works. Yeah, thank you very much. That was really amazing. So you really looked into all different kind of cities also, what is happening there on growth stage. Which city do you like the most when it comes to sustainability?
So now with the present research, we have highlighted 3 to 4 places wherein they are looking for sustainability as a main criteria. So as I said, the population has already been increasing in the Asian and African regions. The Western countries are looking into sustainability. So New York is definitely looking for in most of the US states. And when you come into European cities, I think we need to also see Denmark. So these are the few things. It really depends because each indicator, each dimension varies. As I told you, environment has a different set of rules and regulations. Social is definitely more about education, and then comes the economy, which talks about job opportunity. So all the three sector varies, and these three falls in different buckets of the city planning. It's something like a smart cities, but more being sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course there is a lot of people growth in Africa, like you mentioned, and India. A lot more people coming there, so it's going to be difficult to also keep that sustainable, probably.
I agree, but also we need to see that it's in a good way and a bad way. It must be in the growth in economy, but it must be a loss in sustainability. But how are we trying to manage both? That would be the main criteria.
Yes, to bring that together. Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, thank you for being with us again today, Jyothi. Hope to see you again next time. And
Thank you so much. And thank you for your whole team. You have been very nice throughout. I think I've completed 4 years with Global PropTech.
yes, yeah, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
we like to have you with us. So see you next time.
Surely. Bye. See
Enjoy
ya.
your day in India. Bye bye.